Everyone wants to learn how to manifest. And if you've been paying attention to the work of Joe Dispenza, you will know that he says that major neurological changes and manifestations occur when the brain is in a theta brainwave state. And unless you are a highly trained meditator, it is going to be very difficult to attain a theta brainwave state. It takes meditators years until they can maintain theta. And what's interesting is that if you maintain a prolonged state of parasympathetic nervous system activation, you get into a theta brainwave state. And the easiest way to get into a parasympathetic nervous system state is by repetitive spinning. Why do you think the whirling dervishes do the Sema dance? Why do you think Rumi was a whirling dervish? To attain mystical states of consciousness by repetitive spinning during the Sema dance, where the mind will transcend the normal operating system, which is typically rooted in the sympathetic fight or flight nervous system state. When you can get into a parasympathetic dominant state, you are naturally going to be more grounded, more balanced, more centered, more peaceful, more joyful, and more patient. They say that meditators can attain a state of spiritual ecstasy in which the light within themselves causes immense joy to the point of some people crying tears of joy and ecstasy with no mind-altering drugs whatsoever. And that state is attainable. So if you can be in a parasympathetic nervous system state for an extended period of time, the brainwaves automatically enter a theta brainwave state. And then your intentions and your thoughts and your wishes have a tendency to manifest in physical reality. And it's not gonna start out big. You're not gonna wake up one day and have access to a hot wallet with 100,000 coins of XRP. But it will start happening with all the little things that you probably experienced every so often, like getting a front row parking spot on a really crowded day at Costco, or having a money issue and then an unexpected refund check shows up in the mail, or thinking about someone and they call. It's a manifestation. It is a different frequency of consciousness. And we all want to be more peaceful. We all want to be happier. We all want to be more patient. And I think ultimately we all want to feel good walking around in this skin suit that we all operate for a very limited period of time here in this reality. And it's comical because the incessant thinker seems to have been programmed into the mind. It's autonomous because the heart will beat, the lungs will breathe, the eyes will blink, the fingernails and the hair will grow, the food will digest itself, and the mind will think. And it thinks all these thoughts during the day, 60,000 of these thoughts during the day. And how could 80% of them be negative? How could we be walking around with our own inner critic being the worst enemy we could ever face in our life? And then you attain some separation from that program and you see it for what it is. It's an autonomous program that doesn't serve you. And if you have an awareness of the thinker, are you really the one thinking the thoughts? And like the Oracle says, that's really gonna bake your noodle later. And when you give it some thought and you realize that you are the awareness and the thoughts are going to be thunk all by themselves, they don't have to be so heavy, and you also don't have to be attached to that program. You have a thought that arises that doesn't serve you. You say cancel, delete, cancel, delete. That does not serve the mission. That does not serve this vibration. That is not going to serve anyone around this consciousness. And it is the only critic that really matters. Because if you stand on stage in front of 1,000 people, there's going to be 1,000 different opinions of you. And if you're constantly trying to mold yourself to fit into the expectations of others, you're going to be the one who's miserable. So that is the idea of this machine, is that it is the quickest way to get into a parasympathetic nervous system state. That is where you want to be. That is rest and digest. Beast mode is always going to be there when you need it. You just have to decide to flip that switch, but you're not going to be operating in a state of reactivity that is rooted in the sympathetic nervous system state, which is fight or flight. It's a very discordant frequency, and most people are going to live their whole life on that wavelength, and they're always going to be chasing happiness. Happiness is always around the next corner. It's the next job promotion, it's the next new vehicle, it's the next bigger home, it's the next vacation, it's whatever it is. It's always around the next corner, and then when the coveted item is attained, it provides temporary alleviation from the insanity, the perpetual insanity that is generated by the inner critic. So meditation is not about the cessation of thoughts. It is about the detachment. When you detach from that operating system and you create some space between you and the thinking mind, then you find peace. And the easiest way to describe the incessant thinker is, imagine if, I think Wayne Dyer said this, or maybe Dr. David Hawkins, but imagine you're the passenger in a vehicle on the freeway, and you're leaning your head on the headrest and you're kind of looking out the window, and you notice that white line of the shoulder. That is the constant stream of thoughts, 60,000 of those thoughts a day. And when you become in the parasympathetic nervous system, when that becomes the dominant state, then suddenly you can break the gaze away from that line of incessant thinking, and you look out onto the horizon and you see this desert, this vast desert with mountains in the backdrop, and the wind is blowing these tumbleweeds one at a time, and you focus on a tumbleweed and it breaks you away from that line. That line is never ending. It's always there. But if you focus on that line, that's where you will remain stuck. And meditation done properly, or when you hack meditation by inverted spinning, you immediately access the parasympathetic nervous system state. And when you are within the axis of rotation, there is no centrifugal force, so it does not induce any dizziness or nausea. And what's amazing is that when you're done spinning, you stick your landing and you're not dizzy. You're centered, you're balanced, and you're grounded. And I've said this before, but the reason why good therapists will use repetitive spinning with their patients that might have balance disorders, PTSD, depression, anxiety, autism, ADHD, is because when the vestibular system in the inner ear is activated by repetitive spinning, it induces a state of calm and relaxation and centeredness within the patient. So they will put them on a tire swing or an office chair, and they will just spin them for a couple minutes at a time. And then when they're done, suddenly they're calm. Suddenly they can focus. Suddenly they can pay attention. Suddenly they're not all over the board with a million thoughts at once and not knowing what direction to run in or how to respond or react, the biochemistry changes in the body in a parasympathetic nervous system state. So anyone on the spiritual path is going to be doing this.